The thing that I'm going to fight people on is discrediting what Aaron Judge did throughout the season. I fully acknowledge Cal Raleigh had a historical season, but Cal Raleigh had a historical season for a catcher.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm Stacey Gotsulias. He's Brian McKeon. Welcome to Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen every day. Brian, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Good weekend ahead of us. A good week. Hopefully some more baseball news that'll break throughout the week. We're hoping.
Yeah, we're in the slow period. We are in the thick of it. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Well, it's not totally slow because we do have some baseball news to talk about. It looks like, hasn't been made official, but the news was put out by Jeff Passan that Josh Naylor will be going back to the Mariners for 5 years. So good for him. We'll talk about that in segment 3. In segment 2, we're going to talk about the rest of the AL East. What came out of the GM meetings? We're going to tell you what we think the other teams are going to do this offseason. But first, let's keep talking about Judge winning the MVP and being disrespected by so many people all over the place.
Yeah, and the only reason we're going to bring this up is because it's still circulating a lot around just different shows and online and people on social media that are wanting to defend Cal Raleigh. And let's say this first. I understand it if you're a Mariners fan and you want to defend Cal Raleigh and you think he's the MVP. And quite frankly, baseball is such a regional sport that a lot of people watch their team every single night, and that's it. So if you're a Mariners fan who watches the Mariners every night, I can understand how you so passionately could feel attached to Cal Raleigh and think, how could he not win the MVP? So I'm not going to fight you on that. The thing that I'm going to fight people on is discrediting what Aaron Judge did throughout the season. I fully acknowledge Cal Raleigh had a historical season, but Cal Raleigh had a historical season for a catcher. And it is not the most valuable catcher award. It is not the best catcher award. It is not whatever variants of catcher you want to use. It is not given to the best catcher. It is given to the best player in their league. That is how the award works. So I understand that his season was historical from a catcher's perspective, but it was not fully historical from a baseball player's perspective. And it was a great year. I'm not taking that away from Cal Raleigh. I'm certainly not. And it is impressive that he was a catcher all year and put up these numbers. He certainly put up a great season. But we have to stop ignoring Aaron Judge's season as if what he did wasn't also historical on another level. That's the part that's starting to bother me, is we're discrediting Aaron Judge. We're tearing Aaron Judge down publicly to try and make it a better case for Cal Raleigh. And to me, if you need to bring one guy down to elevate another guy, you're making the point for me that Aaron Judge is the real MVP.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things. Like you said, a lot of fan debate still happening. You know, we'll talk about it a bit later in the segment, but the Athletic writers, there were 4 of them that voted on MVP, and they told you why they voted who they voted for. And a couple of the reasons were sort of silly to me. We'll talk about that in a bit. Mm-hmm. I can understand it from the fans' point of view, but like you said, it feels like people are trying to dismiss what Aaron Judge did. And Aaron Judge's season was an all-time best season by a hitter.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're forgetting that. And, you know, this is a stat that really led to me, too. Judge became the 3rd player ever to hit 50 home runs and win a batting title in the same season. And the other 2 guys are Mickey Mantle and Jimmy Fox. That's pretty solid company to be in. So I don't understand how you can ignore that. Also, listen to this stat of how crazy this is. He became the first player since Barry Bonds in 2004 to lead the league in both batting average and OPS, which is extremely rare in the history of baseball.
Yep.
Which, by the way, OPS stands for on base plus slugging. That's exactly what it is. It's your on base percentage added up with your slugging percentage. But it also is a stat that a lot of people like to use an abbreviation for of overall player statistic, because even though it is your on base at plus your slugging, technically, it is a very, very, very good barometer of how you are as an overall player.
Right.
It's because on base and slugging kind of takes into account everything you do up there as a hitter. And to lead the league in OPS and batting average is unbelievably impressive, because it means you don't just walk, you get your base hits, you have your power incorporated. It really is an overall statistic. And again, Stacey, this is the thing that boggles my mind. It's not like these two were neck and neck in OPS. Judge's OPS is 1144. Cal Raleigh's is 948. It's 1,000. It's 100 points lower. Like it's not like they're neck and neck. It's 100 points of a difference. That's 200 points of difference.
Yeah.
That's a huge gap. That's a significant gap. This is not, neck and neck. If they were more neck and neck, I would get giving it to Cal Raleigh, especially with the advantage in home runs, but they're not neck and neck. They're separated by a good margin.
Right. Yeah, I've seen some people talking about it's not the WAR award, it's the MVP award. And it's like, but WAR takes into account just how good the player is overall. And if he's worth a certain number and it's double what the other, not double, if it's 2 points higher than the other guy, then he's obviously more valuable.
I mean, last I checked, the game in essence. So I've seen that argument a lot too for Raleigh. That Raleigh is more valuable to the Mariners than Judge was, and I would disagree, because the Mariners, they acquired Eugenio Suarez at the deadline. They acquired Naylor at the deadline. So
who also almost hit 50 home runs this season, by the way.
Yeah, so they upgraded their offense, which is what pushed them into the postseason. But that team is built on pitching. Mm-hmm. So the value in their team, if you want to talk about the most valuable Mariner, it's probably a guy like Brian Wu, guys in their starting rotation who had better years than they actually were supposed to. That's not discrediting Cal Raleigh. It's just say how valuable they are from where the Mariners are built.
But would you say they had better years as pitchers because of him being behind the plate?
That is a good point. I actually would take that point. That's actually a very good point by you, especially if he had such a great year behind the plate. But right. Last I checked, the objective of the game in all sports is to win. Wins is what matters most. And WAR, as we know, is wins above replacement. Aaron Judge's WAR was 9.7. Cal Raleigh's was 7.4. That's 2.3 wins more per season. That's a significant amount for one player to impact throughout a season. It just is. Like, that's how the stat works. So, I don't want my argument to look like I'm taking something away from Cal Raleigh, and I'm not saying he had a great year. He really did. But when there's this much of a gap between the two, I don't think the argument becomes very close. And again, I think publicly, if you need to tear down what Aaron Judge did and try to make it look like Aaron Judge is not a good player, to me, it makes it look like Cal Raleigh's argument isn't strong enough to win it on his own.
Well, it's really funny because like a lot of people were like, oh, well, I thought people don't pay attention to batting average anymore. And everyone keeps bringing up the batting average with Aaron Judge. And I just find that so funny because in a sense, it's kind of true because a lot of people have kind of pushed batting average to the side. But when you see someone like Judge, whose batting average didn't dip below 319 the entire year, and he was just constantly hitting the ball, you don't see that often anymore. So that's why it's a big deal.
And it needs to be, just to stay on the batting average thing for a second, it needs to be highlighted more that he did this in an era when batting average is not prioritized by teams.
While also hitting for power. Because you see guys like Arise who hits for
great batting average has no power.
But has no power. Yeah.
Yeah. Or, Cal Raleigh, who hits for great power but hits 240.
Right.
It's one or the other in today's game. And even the guys that hit for great average like Arise, he'll hit 318 and we'll talk about it like it's a great year. Judge hit 330. Like it's an unbelievable year hitting wise, included with the power. You don't see that in today's game anymore. You really don't. It's not a thing. And again, credit to Judge. To me, this is the last argument that I bring up, at least on my end, for why it's ridiculous. You cannot state, and this should be blanket for everybody that's going to defend Cal Raleigh. You want to have your point to defend Cal Raleigh, by all means, go for it. You cannot use the argument against Cal Raleigh not winning it as Aaron Judge already has 2 MVPs. The other years that he won MVP have zero to do with Aaron Judge's 2025 season. It is the 2025 American League MVP. Nothing previously has into account. If I bring up another sport, Stacey, because this happens in basketball all the time, there are years that LeBron James had outrageously great years that voters just simply didn't give LeBron James the MVP because he won it the last 2 years. So we should give it to a different guy, which is quite frankly ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. If a guy is the most valuable player, he should be voted the most valuable player. It shouldn't matter what he did the previous years. It shouldn't matter how you voted the previous years. If he's the guy who's the best in the league, you vote for him.
Exactly. And so the argument that Judge already has 2 and he shouldn't have got the 3rd because Raleigh deserved it there. This is not preschool. There are no participation trophies. There is no everyone's got to feel equal. The best player gets the award. And that's how this worked. And it's the best player for that individual season. What you did in previous years should not be taken into account. And what you do next year or what your projected future, none of that should matter. So that is an argument that I think, you want to make your Cal Raleigh argument or your Judge argument. I'll take any kind of numbers argument. Again, I think Judge kind of surpasses all of those guys when it comes to numbers. But overall, you can't use the Judge has 2 MVPs already argument with me because that to me is just complete bogus.
All right, so let's end it on this. The Athletic had 4 writers put something out on, I believe it was Sunday or was it Saturday, where they explained their votes for the MVP. So it was Tyler Kepner, Britt Giroli, Zach Mizell, and Chandler Rome who voted in the MVP ballot. And Kepner voted Raleigh, Giroli voted Raleigh. That's hard to say. Mizell voted Judge, and Rome voted Judge.
So it's a split with the Athletic.
Yes, but the explanations that Kepner and Giroli gave just bugged me a lot.
All right, let's hear him.
Kepner said that Raleigh's season was historic, as if Judge's season was not historic.
Judge's season, again, is in the names of Mickey Mantle and Jimmy Fox and Barry Bonds. So,
right. And then Britt Giroli said, it's not the WAR award, it's the MVP award.
I mean, but WAR is a factor. Right. Just like OPS and batting average and on-base percentage and all of those categories where Judge leads Raleigh.
And it's, one last thing. We briefly brought this up on Friday. But in 2017, when Judge lost out to Altuve, people brought up the batting average. But then people were like, well, Judge had 52 home runs, but Altuve had the better batting average. And now they're doing the opposite, where they're like, well, Raleigh had 60 home runs, and who cares about Judge's batting average? And I just find that funny that 8 years later, people are doing that too.
The Mariners this year also had a 3.76 team ERA, which is really good. Mm-hmm. I don't understand how one guy with power numbers is the MVP of the most valuable player to a team when their starting pitching staff had an ERA under 4.
Right.
Like, that's got to be taken into account too.
But again,
no, I agree. It's a very good point on your part.
Yeah.
But I mean, the pitchers still have to perform. He can call a great game. You still got to pitch well.
True. The guys have to throw it where you tell them to throw it. Yeah. All right. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button on our videos, hit the notification so you know when our videos go up. You can listen to us on every podcasting platform available. You can follow us on Instagram at Locked On Yankees, because I'm starting to post there more. So follow us there if you want. Coming up, what are the other AL East teams up to, or what do we think they'll be up to this offseason? We're going to tell you next.
The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel. It's the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And even if you miss the start of the regular season of the game and you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a bigger payout. I love NFL Sundays, just rolling through the FanDuel app, seeing what I can get involved in live, seeing if I can get players, stat projections in live, who I think is going to keep performing, who I think is going to fall off, all of it. Throughout every NFL Sunday, NBA days during the week, all of it's great on the FanDuel app. Plus, it keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late game push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel. It's the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Also, guys, every Friday we answer your questions, and now we're opening up to comments as Well, if you're not part of the Locked On Yankees Insiders Club, become a part of it. And this is what you have to do if you're not a part of it. You go to the Locked On Yankees YouTube channel, click on the post tab right there, and you'll see the latest posts telling you to leave your question and comments. Ask us about the Yankees, baseball in general. Leave us a comment about the show, our personal lives, whatever you want to get into. The deadline for this week will be Thursday, November 20th at 5 p.m. Eastern time. That's Fan Mail Friday, everybody's favorite episode of the week. Now, the GM meetings ended last week, and I think it's very fascinating how much these guys choose to reveal in the GM meetings. And I do think they are pushed by the league to an extent to kind of reveal what their base plans are for the offseason, because the league wants to generate interest throughout the sport. And baseball really is one of those sports, when they hit the doldrums of the offseason, they really hit the doldrums of the offseason. Baseball kind of dies off, especially with the sports calendar around now. Hockey, basketball, college basketball, football. There's so much going on that baseball really is going to lose out in the news cycle. So I do think the league tries to push these GMs to, hey, let us know in these GM meetings what you're going to be in on this offseason, so we can kind of generate some news going on. So a lot of the GMs, we're just going to go over the AL East for now, and maybe we'll break these down a little further throughout the week. But just for now, we're going to go over the 4 other teams in the American League East. We've obviously done the Yankees all offseason. But what is expected based on the comments made by the GMs and the presidents of baseball operation of the 4 other teams in the American League East and what they're expected to do throughout the offseason. And we're going to get Stacey's opinion on what she thinks, whether this is what they should or shouldn't do and if this is expected or not. So let's start off with the Baltimore Orioles. Now, the narrative that me and Stacey painted going into last season is disgrace. And then the way the season went was disgrace. And the big thing we pointed at, Stacey, was the fact that the Orioles went into last year losing Corbin Burns, deciding not to pay him. Made no sense to us whatsoever. He left, went to the Diamondbacks. They didn't have an ace on their staff, and they spent no money throughout the offseason to upgrade their young budding roster. Still confusing to me, and the Orioles wound up having a terrible season and firing their manager midway through. Well, GM Mike Elias said that they will be prioritizing acquiring a front-of-the-line starter. So again, why would you let Corbin Burns walk last offseason? He is willing to trade from his minor league system in order to make that happen. They're also looking for a closer and an impact bat, preferably in the outfield.
Well, to be fair, Corbin Burns wanted to go back closer to home in Arizona, but
make an offer, though. Make an offer.
Either make an offer or try to go for someone else, or,
Max Fried was available. Max Fried had no problem with the East Coast.
Yeah, I don't understand what they were, they have the new ownership, and Orioles fans were excited to finally get a new owner in and thought, okay, we're going to have a new owner. He'll want to pay. And we have this young core of players who have been doing really, really well. And just a couple of more moves will put them over the top and have them win the division instead of making the playoffs through the wild card and losing in that way. Like, maybe we can go one step further. They didn't do that.
Made no sense at all. Also, they want an impact bat, preferably an outfielder. You let Anthony Santander walk last offseason. So,
and didn't even try for Juan Soto either.
Yeah, so I find it very odd how this is what they're going for going into next year, when they had these options available on their roster, becoming free agents last year, and they didn't even make offers towards these guys. Right. Very odd to me, but we'll see what they wind up doing. I find it hard to believe they'll be involved in major free agent moves coming off a poor year, but we'll see. There's a lot of young talent there, so I could see how a veteran player might be intrigued to go there. The Red Sox, chief baseball operator Craig Breslow, remember they don't have a GM because he serves as both there. He's expected to reopen trade talks with the Twins for Joe Ryan. Remember, they were really involved in him at the deadline. Finished last year with a 3.49 ERA last year, and has 2 years of control left. I got to be honest, as a Yankee fan, if they replace Joe Ryan with any of the guys that are leaving their rotation, including Lucas Giolito, that's a pretty solid offseason.
Oh, yeah.
Just to add that to their pitching staff with already Crochet there and Brian Bayo, that could be a really, really solid staff going into next year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Hopefully they don't do more than that, but they probably will.
That's a talented young team. I'd be worried about them lurking, especially with not a lot of money on the books so far.
Yeah.
Here's a team with not a lot of money on the books.
Ever.
That I don't comprehend what they're doing. So they declined Pete Fairbanks' offer, one of the best relievers in all of baseball. He had an $11 million team option. Why would you decline that for one of the best relievers in baseball when, by the way, the reliever market's going to be outrageous this offseason? Don't get that whatsoever.
Because they're the Rays.
Yeah. Stacey, if I were to ask you any major league team next year, let's play a little gambling game. Over under $30 million. Would you take the over or the under on how much money the Rays have committed to next season?
Oh, over or under 30? I would say under.
Yeah, well, it is. $29 million they have committed towards the opening day roster so far. That's disgraceful. The Yankees, just to take into account, guys, have multiple players making more than that next year.
Yeah, I think the Yankees have like over 250 million
already committed.
Yeah.
This $29 million committed towards 2026. I mean, the collective apparently GM thought on the Rays going into next year is hands up emoji of who the heck knows.
Hey, they're gonna have a roof at the Trop, so they'll be able to play in the Trop because they after not doing much with it, it's now like on the fast track to being ready for the season.
So the upgrade for the Rays next year is air conditioning. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
The Blue Jays, they're expected to spend money. They're going to have money to spend. They likely will move all of their pieces into trying to retain Bo Bichette next year. If they can't land Bichette, it is rumored that they will be heavy after Kyle Tucker. Yankee fans, do not panic, though. Bichette wants to be back. They want him back, and there is less than a 0% chance they are going to go after both. If they get Bichette, they are going to probably make little tweaks to their roster, maybe acquire a starter or a couple of bullpen pieces, but they're not going to be acquiring two $200+ million players. It is likely going to be Bichette and then smaller pieces, and there is a very high possibility there's interest in both parties that Bichette will be back in Toronto. So I don't think Kyle Tucker being involved in the Toronto sweepstakes is something to be overly involved in. But again, this time of year, as we discuss, all teams are necessarily involved because the agents just throw everybody in there that's willing to spend money, because why not? I think Bichette's back in Toronto. Do you?
I think so. I was going to say how MLB trade rumors, all four writers think that he's going to be back with the Blue Jays.
And that'll stop. That'll halt their offseason spending. Maybe they'll be involved in an Edwin Diaz or a high-end closer. There's a chance of that too.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. As you said with the Fairbanks news, the reliever market is going to be something to look at
between Suarez and Diaz and Fairbanks. And I would think the Blue Jays are going to be involved in one of those, especially last year after getting Hoffman, thinking that he was going to have this unbelievable year and just being awful. Teams that are trying to compete like them, you need to have a dominant back end of the bullpen guy. You just do. You see how important it is in the postseason. I expect them to put up a big offer after one of those three guys that are going to be available.
Yeah, I think it would likely be Bichette and then someone for the bullpen.
It'll be a busy offseason. And you know what? Rightfully so. You make a run to the World Series. Your fans deserve you to go out and spend.
Yeah. I mean, look at the Yankees. They did, after they lost Juan Soto, go out and get Max Fried.
And heck, the Dodgers win the World Series and go out and spend. So
right. All right. Well, coming up next, one of the teams that made it pretty far in the playoffs, the Mariners, have their first baseman locked up for the next 5 years, according to Jeff Passan. We'll talk about that next.
The NFL season is through the halfway point, and it's running towards the playoffs. And honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium, surrounded by the fans, cheering on your team. And let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's unbelievably frustrating. And that's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price possible. Plus, all of the fees, they're included all the time. So the price you see is the price you're going to pay. No surprises at the checkout. The app is super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seats before buying. Honestly, it's faster, it's cheaper, and it's less stressful than any other way that I've bought tickets before. So here's what you got to do. Download the Gametime app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Gametime app today. So, Stacey, news breaking late on Sunday night, Josh Naylor, 28 years old, who was traded to the Seattle Mariners last year, is re-signing in Seattle to stay there 5 more years. He does love being there from all accounts. They do love having him there. I do find it interesting, though. I mean, I'll say this. This is all but guaranteed. Jeff Passan was the one who reported it, so he deserves full credibility. If he's somehow wrong, I'll take one on the chin there, but I'm going to go ahead and trust Jeff Passan. He's been right more often than not.
Yeah.
The thing I find interesting is there's, as of now, when we're recording this, and it's just after midnight on Monday morning, I find it very interesting there have been no financial figures released. Usually with these deals, the finances are released as soon as the deal is released. I find that very peculiar, just because he's the first baseman on the market, and it kind of would give us an indication of what Pete Alonso is going to wind up getting. Now, Naylor's 28 years old. I find 2 things weird with this. The money not being announced yet, and the fact that a 28-year-old would sign so early in the offseason and only get a 5-year deal. You would think he'd with the year that he had and the postseason that he had, that he would let himself hit the free agent market and see if he can get more. More often than not, you would think a team would give him a 7-year deal, getting him to 35 years old. So I find it very interesting that he would only take a deal up to 33.
Maybe he loved playing with the Mariners and decided.
Oh, and I agree. I don't have a problem with that. Even he might love it in Seattle and just think it's the perfect place and everything like that. Wouldn't you kind of know that and then hit the free agent market, just hoping that Seattle gives you the extra year?
But maybe they won't.
But at that, even if they won't, that 5-year deal will be there.
Right.
So why would you take that deal immediately right now, this early in the offseason?
I don't know.
I
I guess we'll find out, right? When it's made official and we find out the money and we find out any kind of incentives or anything like that.
My guess is he's going to land somewhere between like $17 and $21 million a year. Starting first baseman, puts up solid numbers, has decent power, is a reasonable glove over there. Plus you're locking him for 5 years. I think it's going to be somewhere in that range, which is a fine deal for Seattle and a fine deal for Naylor. I would just think that he'd wait a little longer. And I do think this impacts Pete Alonso a lot. I think the Mets pigeonholed themselves last offseason by not giving him a long-term deal like he wanted last offseason. And they played games with him for the whole offseason last year. And then he comes out and has a big year, Stacey. They're now forced to give him a big deal. And now they're going to give him more years for probably more money than they were planning on giving him last year. This is going to become a bad contract. And it's almost like one of those deals that the Mets have to sign, and you also know is going to be a bad deal at the end of the deal. But you now have to give it to him.
Right. Because I've brought this up before. If you sign him to a long-term deal, right now he's okay at first, but he's not going to be okay at first.
Yep.
Further down the line. And if Juan Soto doesn't opt out, doesn't leave, sticks around, he's going to be someone who's not going to be playing defense down the line. And I would say my bold prediction is that they will not want Juan Soto in the outfield within the next 3 seasons.
That's really bold. 3 seasons, because Juan Soto's still in his 20s. And they might have no option, honestly. They might have to keep
He's just, woof. It's not going to get better.
He's not an elite fielder. That's not the strength of his game. I don't know if he's bad enough to be like they might have to keep him out there.
Right.
Just on principle.
Right.
Which is
that's going to be the thing, because you can't have a butcher at first base where the balls are going to go flying past him and out to Soto. So you're going to have to decide.
Here's the thing with Alonso too, because again, it's one of those deals he's going to probably sign like a 7-year deal, and that the back 4 years of that deal are going to be awful.
So you think it's definitely going to be them? Like, you don't think someone else is going to swoop in and want Pete Alonso? Or do you think the other teams are going to think the same way I am, that he's going to be a DH sooner rather than later, and why give him all this money?
There's certainly rumors with the Red Sox, and I do think he fits them wonderfully. Like, he really fits that team very well. I think he loves it in New York. I think New York knows that. Yeah. And I think after the year that he just had, again, they're going to have to overpay to keep him there. again, the issue that they're running into, though, is like, the back end of that deal was a bad deal. And he had a good average last year, but historically, Pete Alonso does not hit for average.
No.
So now you're talking about a guy who's going to probably on the back end of that deal be hitting south of 240, the power is going to drop off. The fielding is obviously going to drop off. This reminds me a lot of the Robinson Cano deal, where the Yankees were willing to give it to him to a certain number. And if it went over that number, which Seattle was willing to do, they were not going to budge because the Yankees pretty much knew, hey, Cano, you were great. You helped us win a championship. But they also knew at a certain number, your play is going to decrease and it's not going to be worth it for us. And to the Yankees' credit, a lot of people were upset when Cano left because they didn't overpay and make sure he stayed. It was the right call. It was. He had the first 2 or 3 years were really good in Seattle, and then he had a drastic drop off. It was the right call. So, like, these deals, sometimes they're difficult decisions. I just feel like this is going to be one of those scenarios where Steve Cohen and the deep pockets that he has is going to come back to bite the Mets. He's going to have to make this deal, and I don't think it's going to turn out pretty for them.
It'll be interesting. I'm also interested in seeing if they bring Diaz back, if he goes somewhere else, if they bring someone else in like Suarez or someone else in the reliever market to be their closer.
They have a lot. They have a lot to do.
Yeah,
they do, and they've already got I believe it's $280+ million committed to next year. But they have a lot to do. They need to revamp their whole starting rotation. That's why I think they're probably going to empty their farm for Skubal because they have to get a guy at a low price like Skubal before that's going to be like a must for them. They're going to have to revamp their bullpen. They have a lot. They need an outfielder desperately. They don't have a center fielder next year. Like, there's a lot of problems they have roster wise for a team that missed the postseason and has like $280 million already committed. They're going to be healthily over the tax next year again. And I mean, they have to make the playoffs next year, right? You can't go into year 2 of Juan Soto and not make the playoffs again.
That would be it was already a disaster that they missed it in 2025. But if they do it again in 2026 and then there's a lockout in 2027.
Oh, yeah. That's a bad place to be as a franchise.
Yep. Yeah. All right, well, thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings you a daily blend of humor in baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. So that'll do it for this edition of Locked On Yankees. I'm Stacey Gotsulias.
And I'm Brian McKeon. We'll catch you guys tomorrow.